Well, it's another year, another crazy performance from Nicolas Cage. Let's talk about that. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's movie review of The Carpenter's Son. This is directed by Lofty Nathan. Okay, so the movie of the year that will clearly not upset the religious community, The Carpenter's Son, is based off or inspired by the infancy of Gospel of Thomas. It's a story of course, as it doesn't say it, but it's implied that it's the story of a very young 15-year-old Jesus, and it's about how the individuals that include the mother, which is Mary and Joseph and stuff like that, hid their son, who has apparently magical powers of being able to heal people, very much the Jesus ideologies. And he comes across this individual called the Stranger, who is quote unquote, it's obviously Jesus, or obviously Satan, who's played by Isla Johnston. And as this movie moves along, it basically is a much darker horror aspect, psychological horror aspect story of how Jesus was an imperfect individual who was tempted by Satan, who had a father who was not technically his father, played by Nicolas Cage. The ideology and the ideas of that Jesus may have been a flawed individual. He may not have been a very good individual when he was younger. He was a kid. That's the type of movie this is. And once again, he comes across a character called the Stranger. He helps heal a bunch of people with leprosy. He becomes like a deity, but also kind of looked down upon, because during the Roman Empire days, back in the late ADs. And this is a story of a 15-year-old Jesus, and it's told in a very psychological horror aspect, has very horrifying elements, and yeah, it also has FK Twigs as Mother Mary. So there you go. So the discourse behind this movie has been something very interesting in the religious communities, because they're trying to ban this movie because it makes Jesus look flawed, and it makes him look like an individual who was not, the guy that was like the holier than thou individual. It makes him feel human, and I think it upsets people. But when it comes to entertainment, it's supposed to invoke emotion. It's supposed to invoke the ideologies of what the director is trying to say, whether you believe it or not. And so going into this, knowing that it was a movie that was going to hit a very dark essence of religion, especially from the infancy of the Gospel of Thomas, which I don't honestly know much about, but would just say that it's not looked upon very well. It was going to strike a chord with the audiences of the religious faith. And I go into this wanting to know if it's going to be a good movie, because it's Nicolas Cage. You look at stuff like what he's done in the last few years, he's willing to do interesting material. But with a movie that has Nicolas Cage as essentially Joseph, and Noah Jupe as Jesus, and FK Twigs as Mother Mary, and then having Satan and all these characters, is the movie at least entertaining? Yes, it is. It's a very interesting movie. I love psychological horror films. I like the idea that, it puts Jesus and puts the ideas of Jesus in a very different light than what you're expected to know when it comes to the religious faith. And I'm perfectly all right with that. I'm perfectly all right with a different telling. It doesn't all have to be, a Jesus Christ superstar. It has to be, something that is willing to push the boundaries of what religious faith is. And that's what this movie does. But it does it in a sense of, here is a family that their son could have been killed because of the Roman, fear of what Jesus would end up eventually become, which is a deity and, somebody of a movement in a lot of respects. And allows him to be human, and allows this character to be flawed and be corrupted, and allows this individual to be something that is, though it has mystical elements, allows this character to be a person in a lot of respects, which is what Jesus is not for a lot of people. And I enjoyed the movie for what it's worth. It goes a little dark. It goes into a lot of Noah territory, the Darren Aronofsky version. And I think it makes a sense of like, the world sucks. The people suck in the world a lot of times. When you have a corrupted government that is all powerful and controls the world, and then you have people willing to sell you out, and then you have someone that comes along that just helps people, and just, it makes for a very dark style of situation. And this movie's not willing to hold back on that. It shows what it's like to have leprosy. It shows what it's like for the world to look down upon you. It shows like a young kid who is starting to feel his way in the world, and a father who, according to religious texts, is 111 years old at this point, who like fears for his son to be out in the open, and uses that like fear to like be kind of abusive in a lot of respects. And then you have a mother who sees her son for who he is, and fears the father and stuff like that. It goes into a lot of heavy dark material when it comes to what he's trying to say. But I think Noah Jupe is actually the standout of this movie because he's really good. He's having to deal with a lot of strenuous stuff when it comes to the darkness of what Lofty Nathan is trying to present in his writing and directing of this movie. The imagery that he has to see, the ideas of like the snakes, and the ideas of like what this stranger character played by Isla Johnston, who does a fantastic job in this movie as a stranger, it attempts to portray the world as a very dark and disturbing and sometimes unforgiving place. And so therefore I think Lofty Nathan does a fantastic job of presenting that. I think the imagery is very potent. I think the horror is very in your face and very unsettling. And I think Nicolas Cage has this ability to find directors who may not do a lot of stuff and help them like revive their career and kind of bring their career into focus. Because though Nicolas Cage is doing Nicolas Cage stuff in this movie, it really does work. It really does. I feel Nicolas Cage is just in that level of like having fun with what he's doing and finding interesting material. And him technically playing Joseph is a really interesting idea because of his mannerisms and stuff like that. But once again, I think when you look at this movie and you look at how unsettling it is, and you look past the ideas of Jesus as a all-knowing, all-being, uncorruptible individual, I think you can find good in this movie, to be fairly honest. I think it's just a very well put together movie. It's only 90 minutes long. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It has unsettling stuff to look at. And yeah, I think the Carpenter's Son is a good film. It's going to get a lot of hate from the religious community, but I think overall it's an interesting film with a lot of deep messages when it comes to what it's trying to do. Once again, it's based off the infancy of Gospel of Thomas, so take that for what it's worth. So there you go. Anyways, with that said, that is my take on The Carpenter's Son, which will be in theaters this weekend. It probably won't do very well. It'll get a lot of hate, as I've seen already, but check it out. So in the comments below, are you planning on seeing this movie? I know, once again, the infancy of Gospel of Thomas is not well liked, but let me know if you see this movie, what you think overall. Are you interested, like, the ideologies behind it, all the good stuff? But otherwise, if you like what you see on the channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome, hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out, guys.